Okay, we've got a nice shot here from Andrew Summers to review, so let's have a look. Okay, super cool shot, Andrew. Thank you for sending your reel over. I chose this one to look at because I felt it was really cool, and I had a few things to say about it. Okay, so I'm just going to start by looking at the body itself rather than hands and guns and heads and smears and things like that. Bigger picture things, I guess. So I think this is working pretty well. If anything, this could be a bit more interesting. Just said I wasn't going to look at smaller pictures things, but I think this line we could get. So we've really got like one line through the body here. Maybe this foot is a bit more in. Just a bit more directional, like an arrow guiding our eye down to the floor. Then when he hits, feel that this flow of the pose is a little broken. So I think you'd probably want these hips somewhere over here, and then the chest maybe here. And then here, if we're just looking at the headspace, I really think this should be something that just comes and goes, boom, boom, straight down. Well, almost straight down anyway. Maybe a slight movement over, But we don't want a big down and then a shoot over because it just won't be very clear. So let's have a look. So I'm thinking here it might be stronger to have. I like the C shape you've got in here. Probably have this a bit more, obviously, down as you have it, but you could get this. And then I think this, something like this would be a bit stronger in the leg. And it's cool how you kind of track his headspace here. I think that works nicely, but his body is still moving quite a lot. Though I think you could get some more shape change in here. It's a little flat onto camera, so maybe if it's more going from something like this to something more of that sort of shape. So from that to that might be a bit better. Just feels a bit up and down here, a bit linear. Then there's, if I'm looking at this area, there's not an awful lot of shape change. It would be nice here to get more of a shape change here. So this is a cool pose. And then we just want to go. So get the hips over there, just to counter a little. At least, I mean, you could have more of an extreme. So it's a little, this goes slightly over, but then this be more clear. So just a slight reversal in there, I think will help quite a lot. Usually I'd like to see this more countered so that the head is more here and then the hips perhaps come over here, but because he's being shot, I think his whole weight wants to be pushed over to really sell that, you know. And then kind of as he settles, I'd probably settle with more of this kind of arc. So you can kind of get that reversal, even though it's all a down. So if you're looking at the headspace, it'll probably be something like that. So it's going down and then arcing round, but rather than just going from this pose. I think the trouble is you go from this pose, but this pose really wants to be contrasted with this pose more. So going into this pose and then back down into this is sort of an antic to go over to this pose, I think will help. So here it feels a little broken here. It's kind of breaking the flow for me. I do like that you've got a bit of a curve in there, but I really think this flow could be a lot nicer. Get it through the leg and stuff as well. Lift these hips up and kind of forward, so that we kind of end up with, you know, more of this kind of thing in the body. I think that would be cool. And again, the same thing here with the reversal. I think you want to have a bit more of this shape in there. Ooh. And then here he's definitely feeling quite broken in his shoulder, and I know that's because you're trying to have his hand down, so I think what that's gonna tell us. Well, I think if he's in this pose, then it kind of makes sense for him to go into a bit more of a kind of crouch pose like he had before. So you could probably get him down a bit, and then still have this arm nicely there. This leg coming out a little more, with the hip back here. Then gives your arm a bit more space for this kind of silhouette here. I know this drawing isn't very clear, but hopefully you understand what I mean. And here I think you're really losing his whole body here. He just kind of becomes a head with arms and legs. So I think there's a way here where we could perhaps have something a little more, so legs can really sort of splay out. You know, and really get his body in there still. I think that would be a lot more successful and clear, you know. Feel like getting his head kind of in between his shoulders here really gives him that kind of crouching down pose. Whereas this just kind of feels like you've gone from the pose that he had before and just said, oh, he needs to go down a bit lower. Whereas I think you should really think about the shape contrast more rather than just, oh, he goes down. And that will also give you a nicer antic. So this down pose can act as the antic for this jump. You know, he's got a lot of like kind of tension in this pose here. And he can kind of just spring up into this. And then I think an issue here that I have is watching his headspace. So he goes over here. And then way back over here in 2 frames. So if we just goes that, you can see that the headspace is really not being clear for us as a viewer. So I think in terms of clarity, have him go from here straight up almost to probably around here. Get himself nice and kind of whoa. And then kind of ease back to what you have, you know. But I think so. That's a combination of things. That's a combination of the headspace being a little more contained, but also pushing this out more, so that one, the headspace goes over, but also he feels a bit more balanced between, you know, leaning back and being over his foot. I think if you turn off ghosting, I think if you just look at this frame, he feels balanced. If you look at this part of his body, you know, he's over this leg. But then when you consider this in here, that's kind of where all of his weight is, especially as a slimmer character. He's got a lot of weight in his head and a lot of weight in his torso here. So something more over here would feel a little more balanced. Yeah. And I think you really want to make that arc straight up into this. So then this pose kind of becomes something similar to what I drew here. So I think this is nice. I think we're losing the flow a little bit of his pose. Probably just get this a little less broken. And again, with the same thing with his hip over, kind of ease that over so that this headspace from here slowly starts to guide our head over here and antic to tell us where he's about to go, you know. That's not rotating his head, that's just a bad drawing. But yeah, I think here definitely a great opportunity to have that reverse in there. So probably something more like this, especially with the legs doing what they're doing. Having the headspace kind of come from here down to here. Getting that reversal in there will really help the flow through the body there. And you could even here have that reversal again, so that this is probably more around here. His head is something around here. Which then will give you some more space to ease into this pose here. So you'll ease from this into this. Just getting more contrast between your poses, really. It feels a little, you know, this pose to this pose to all C shapes rather than any reverse C's in there. So I think that would help you a lot. Yeah. And then this is cool. I really think you could start getting into this shape a bit more. So we're kind of easing into the point more. Think about it as a shape. Just want to ease into this more rather than going from wide to that narrow shape. Ease between those poses. I think that will help a lot. I think we lose a little energy here because he feels like he's easing into this start. So you could probably have this camera I think because we have no background, we don't get a sense of him falling, but I'm sure he is falling through. If we saw bricks here, they would be kind of between these frames slamming down. But I think because we don't have any reference to the background, it looks like he's just kind of easing into this scene. So I'd either hold him a little longer in this kind of shot, with a moving background. You know, just get like some kind of texture on there to help us with that, or kind of just be more here, I think, at the start, because that matches the energy of the previous shot and doesn't jar us as much. It's pretty cool. I think you probably just tighten that shape a little bit. There's a little lumpiness in here, which I think could be smoothed out. And here, just definitely get the headspace is pretty good, I think. You just want to get that flow. Just that reversal in the spine, especially on the push off. I know you have it here, but I think it should definitely be happening sooner. And you also have an issue here with the headspace kind of going back, and then up here, it's a little all over the place, and maybe the camera's tracking him or something. Yes, it is. But we're always going to be looking at here. So I think you want to try and design this movement. I wouldn't necessarily counter it and stuff, but just make sure that the camera isn't overtaking here so that it feels like he's going back and then coming forward again. I really try and stabilize that headspace through there. And changing the posing will help as well, I think. So I think what you have is good there. I'm not going to bother drawing these legs, but definitely tone down the break in his spine there. It feels very broken. You're getting definite snap in the spine there. Again, here, just looking at the spine shape, kind of tells me that this wants to be this pose. So hips down, chest up. And you know, I won't draw it for every frame now, but you get the point. Just making sure that that spine is nice and C or reverse C shaped at all times, really. And I think you're doing the right thing here by easing, but the big snap back in here, and I think you want to be, if you're looking through at a flow through the whole body here, you definitely want him to be easing up a bit sooner, so that then you don't have this big snap back in the head. Okay. Here again, there's a big snap in the head. It just tells me that this pose is, you know, I'm seeing that from the shape of the spine, but also from the spacing of the head. So just bearing those things in mind will really help the shape of the body and the flow of it all. Again, I'm sure you can pretty much guess what I'm gonna be saying here, but I think you really there's not a lot of shape change in this pose, and I think that's the thing which is making this feel weaker than it could be. So I think you really, really want to push this off and then get a huge kind of leap. Again, I'm not going to focus on the legs too much. It's probably a terrible drawing, but I hope you get the idea of what I'm saying in the shape of the body. And I think going from something like this into this is much greater shape change um, than the two drawings that you, or the two poses that you have right now, you know, which will help a lot. It's all about contrast, especially in high action body mechanics things. It's about contrast, but also continuing to lead the eye. Okay, sorry. And I think honestly, what you have through here is pretty cool. Again, very broken here. You got an S shape in here, which is not really working. So that tells me that I honestly keep this as more of a C for a bit longer. You know, this C is pretty good. C, C, and then through here, reverse that. And this will help the headspace a lot as well. So we're more here. I wouldn't exactly have it go back as much as that. I think the spacing's a little bit screwed, but you know, it's only a drawing. But essentially, by having this go back because we've got a moving camera going this way, then it's kind of acting as if it's stable, you know. And here the flow is very broken in this pose. So just always think I'm going from that to that. So just following that. Think he can land there. His momentum's going down though, so I'm not sure what's pushing him back. So his headspace here is okay. I think you want, you know, you don't want to break his head this much. I know it's kind of a smear frame, but I think if we land here where his butt wants to go, then we can still compress this shape a lot. And then just think about that contrast where, you know, this butt wants to come out. Again, maybe not quite that much, but you get the idea of contrast poses, as much as where this would then kind of lead with his chest. His legs are going to be a bit more. And then his body's going to want to compress underneath him, something similar to what you end up in. So just making sure that that is a nice C. But yeah, it's a very cool shot. Very nice. Very nice timing. I think getting that contrast in your posing will help a lot. And it will help with the clarity as well. Will help with some of the kind of jitters in the head. One thing I will mention that isn't exactly the theme of what I'm talking about, but I think because we don't have a lot of pose change here, and you're really trying to keep that hand on the floor, the head is struggling here. It's just very linear. So definitely make sure to get some kind of arc in there on the head. And that's through like even more of a down going into this kind of crouch pose. Um, yeah, just avoiding that linearness. I think it's also very linear in the timing as well. So probably keep it held looking this way, and then can really kind of snap that with a big, almost like squash down of the head and into that look over much quicker, you know, because all of this time where we're transitioning isn't giving us um any clarity really. If he holds this look a bit longer, then it's very clear that he's looking there, and then if we get there sooner, then we get that as a clear beat as well. So just snapping those up will help the beats in that moment. But yeah, thank you.